welcome to our Fire Sanctuary video series. This is the 6th dungeon. That's a tongue twist right there. This is the 6th dungeon in Skyward Sword.
That is tough, man.
A lot of S's there.
6th dungeon. Boom.
6th dungeon. There we go. And I will say, like, this is not a bad dungeon, but after going through the previous 2 dungeons, which were just A+ filet mignon level dungeons in the same
It's really like going from 2 10s, like 2 10 supermodels, to like a 5. Or like if you're in Red's case, it's kind of going from 2 5s to a 1.
It's so true. It is a bit of a letdown dungeon, but I will say that, like, as far as fire dungeons go, or fire-based dungeons go, I love how colorful this dungeon really is compared to a lot of fire dungeons.
Well, I remember when you talked to me after you beat this dungeon. Like, you're like, it wasn't near as good as Cistern or Sand Ship, but you're like, it's a very solid dungeon.
Yeah.
And that's really what it is. It's not good, it's not bad, it's a very solid dungeon.
It is, and it brings some new things to the table that we don't often see in fire dungeons. And one of them is we end up having a lot of water-based type puzzles, which you don't expect.
Yeah, which kind of takes you back actually to Wind Waker. So I mean, I guess you expect that a little bit, but not a lot. But like in Wind Waker, we had those jars of water that we throw in the lava to make those platforms, which we got the same concept going on right here.
It is, and I love how they kind of take that and add to it by like really like making you flow along with the flow of the lava.
I love how this dungeon starts out with this lava ride right here. Just a very simple concept. It's pretty awesome though.
It is. It lets you know, hey, you're in the middle of a volcano, buddy.
You're in a dungeon. It's kind of like a little peaceful ride before the chaos starts.
It's like the lazy river at the water park.
Yeah, well, no, there's not monsters shooting at you on the lazy river.
And if you fall off your inner tube, you burn to death.
That's true.
So I guess it's not like the lazy river at all, actually.
I don't know how they promote that lazy river right there.
No. It's just a nice little touch to start the dungeon. It feels a little laid back. It feels a little slow paced. And it definitely picks up though.
You'll change here in a second.
Well, it's not exactly going to pick up right away, because here in a second we're going to run into this guy that just...
What was it? Is it the Mogmas? Is that what their name is?
I think so.
The enemies that we had, or not enemies, they're actually our allies.
Yeah.
We ran into them first in the Earth Temple, but just too long of a cutscene come up here in a little while, and man, it just, I got bored of it really quickly.
So if we quit talking for a few minutes and just drink beer...
we're bored and tired of this guy too.
Yeah, we'll let you read along.
Yeah, but I mean, I did like that they brought them back from like the Earth Temple.
Me too.
Sometimes I don't like things that are brought back. Sometimes I do. In this kind of case, I did kind of like it because it's a very similar area to the Earth Temple.
And it builds well because they're the ones who gave us like the digging mitts to begin with, or what they call it?
They're digging mitts. I think the ones we get later on in this dungeon.
Yeah.
They're just a different name. Mogma Mitts. I think they're called the Mogma Mitts. Yeah. Which I'm actually not a big fan of.
It seems like a waste of a weapon.
I don't like the weapon. I like the concept that we'll see later on in this video series of us going underground.
Yeah.
But I think they could have done something different,
Yeah. It made sense to bring these guys back, like you said, because once again, we're in another underground type dungeon. It was in their part of the surface world.
Oh, the volcano.
Yeah.
Skyward Sword, it's a volcano.
And they're treasure hunting, and actually they give us a hint to where we have to go a little later in the dungeon, which, I mean, if you're running into a character you can actually talk to in a dungeon, you got to assume they're going to give you hints.
I remember this dungeon actually be kind of a little bit confusing on the map.
It can be.
So we go into this big outside area, which we absolutely love here in a little while. But, I mean, it gets also kind of confusing because it's kind of like broken into different sections and everything.
You have a lot of different directions you can... It seems like there's a lot of different directions.
But I say that about every dungeon. Every dungeon's confusing, so...
Yeah. I will say, though, the hint he gives us, he talks about jumping into the sleeping statue, and that is a very awesome scene.
One of my favorite parts in the whole game.
And you'll see that, not anytime soon.
It's just it's just so awesome, like skydiving, man.
It really is.
That's really what it is in this game, and that's one of those new concepts that we talk about, which we always love that they never used.
And speaking of things we really love,
beautiful.
This cinematic right here with the entire outdoor volcano. It's like you're in a volcano, but you can still see like the sky. It's like you're inside the top of it.
Yeah. And now, while I did say this dungeon was confusing, I remember first walking outside right there.
Yes.
I was like, man, this place is going to be huge.
It looks like it.
Yeah, but it's really not that big. Confusing, yes, but it's really not as big as I thought it would be walking out there the first time.
Yeah, when you first see how far it stretches across the entire volcano, it's on all sides. You're like, oh my god, it's going to take forever to explore all this.
I remember seeing that for the first time. I was like, oh man, I'm going to love this dungeon. And while I do really like this dungeon, it just didn't go as far as I thought it would.
No, not quite. And I will say kind of what made this feel like a little bit bigger and longer of a dungeon too is how small Sandship was, to be honest.
It really was. Sandship was very compact.
Very contained.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I think that like going straight from that to this longer dungeon, even though it's not a whole lot longer, it really feels like it.
It's one of the weird things I really like about this dungeon is I actually like some of the rooms. Like just like you can see right there, like the fencing. Yeah. And then we'll go into some mini boss rooms later on. They're kind of like a circle with like fences.
The lava underneath.
There's just like a lot of rooms in this dungeon. Like they add a lot of little detail that they didn't need to add that just kind of made it stand out a little bit.
And I feel like Skyward Sword, of course, part of it's the the graphical power and everything. But Skyward Sword has done that with some of their dungeons. It's all so many little touches. Like we talked about it in the sand chip walkthrough, like the trim on the doors, the wood. I mean, the colors.
You see right here, the trim right here. Just like the designs in the room.
Yep.
Just little things that they didn't need to add, but just really made this place stand out.
It's that attention to detail that you tell the guys that made this really loved what they were doing.
Yeah. I know as Red was talking about before we started this, like you like the vines too, right there. How it kind of adds like a green, colorful element to it.
It does. Plus, you're not used to seeing like living like plants or something like that in a
fire, in a volcano.
Yeah, so it's just another one of those little things that kind of sets this apart from other fire dungeons. Because, every Zelda game.
Well, you're not used to seeing a dungeon in a volcano either, though.
Right. So. Well, you know what I mean. But it's like every Zelda game has a fire dungeon or several for the most part.
Who is this punk right here? Man. He waits to shoot us until we get down off the vine and then turn our head, and he pops us right in the face.
Point blank.
What a punk.
You think if he was smart, he would have shot you.
That's just a bully, man.
He should have shot you while you were on the vine.
You can see him there just slobbering over the opportunity that's about to come his way.
Like, I cannot wait till this guy turns around.
Just a little longer.
Closer. Well, he certainly got you.
Yeah. In the face.
Oh my gosh. And the Liz Alphos ones, I think Liz Alphos, is that what they're called?
I think there's actually another name. I think they might be called the Dark Liz Alphos because they're purple. Yeah, okay. They're purple in this one, so they're actually called the Dark or Cursed Liz Alphos.
That's right. Now this guy, he kind of hits you a couple times right off the bat, but then you go off.
I know I'm right because I looked it up right before we started this commentary.
Gotcha.
I always got to look at the enemy names before I start.
I am terrible at
that. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't.
You know me, the blob enemy, that one.
That little jelly belly right there.
The stupid bat. That. It's not my strong suit, I will say.
Man, I did get him good though, and those enemies were tough throughout the game because they had that little shield on their arms, and that was one of those things where you really had to work on the motion controls.
I struggled with those guys throughout the entire game. I never got better at them. It was one of those things where, and as much as I hate to say this, I kind of just went in flailing wildly.
Oh, that was me in Skyward Sword the whole game.
It's like, they put so much time in the motion controls to try to make them more precise and everything. And man, I just went in swinging.
There's a couple battles like Ghirahim later on stuff where you kind of do have to be precise with them. But no, when it came to enemies like that, I just went crazy, man. And one thing about this dungeon is there's obviously a lot of lava in every fire dungeon, but for some reason it seems like there's maybe more in this one.
It does feel like the only one I could think that might be close. I mean, other than the Earth Temple earlier that had some lava.
Oh, that's a good point. That had a lot of lava.
A Dragon Roost had some lava.
It did. I guess I'm just thinking that because we're riding the lava a lot in this dungeon, so it just kind of seems like there's a lot.
I feel like it factors in more in part of the puzzles and the way to go than it did in previous games. Because now, most of the time you just avoided it. You just avoid it because it hurts you. But in this game, you actually have to ride on it. You actually have to, blow open the statue to get it flowing. I feel like they incorporated it so much better, just in this game in general, but especially in this dungeon.
And I just love this dungeon now all of a sudden because you get to use the beetle again.
Yes.
So now I just jumped up a couple notches in my book.
The hook beetle now. Or whatever it's called.
No, it's a speed beetle, or you talking about the upgrade? Or?
Yeah. Where it lets you pick up bombs.
Oh, that is right. You do get upgraded. I don't know what it was called. Hook beetle sounds fine.
Close enough.
But it was called something. It was an upgrade that you got maybe in the desert or something like that. I don't know.
It doesn't matter.
It's been so long ago.
But I liked this room, and I will be honest, this room took me a long time to figure out, like a lot of rooms do in Zelda. But using the hook...
I figure them out on the first try every single time.
It might be the first try, I just might be in that room for 30 minutes.
Yes, you know.
Either way, this wraps up part 1 of the Fire Sanctuary.